Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. Alright, so I wanted to get this out yesterday for Ninjago's 15th anniversary, but I'm a day late, so what are you going to do? Anyway, so I'm rewatching Ninjago, as you do. I got to Season 9, which I've always really loved Season 9, ever since it first came out. And I'm thinking, I really ought to do a video on this. Because while I have covered Ninjago a lot, I mostly cover, say, the first 5 seasons, because that's what I'm not necessarily the most nostalgic for it. I mean, I have just as much nostalgia for Season 6 and 7 as I do for, the first 5. I have just a lot of nostalgia for Season 8, a lot of nostalgia for Season 10, 11, even 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, really the entire show, but Season 9 is the one later, post-possession season. I'm just really thinking, man, this is just really, really good. I gotta talk about this. So, here we are. I will talk about Ninjago having turned 15 years old at the end, but for right now, I'm going to talk about why Ninjago Hunted is a masterpiece. Easily one of the best seasons of the show. Before I continue, I'd like to ask you all if maybe you want to like and subscribe. Check out my Letterboxd and Serialized accounts, link in the description. Without further ado, let's do it to it and dive on in. I just want to talk about how good the entire setup of the season is. The idea of having the show split up into 2 different plots happening simultaneously, like you've got the original 4 ninja with Sensei Wu dealing with the dragon hunters in the first realm, and then you have Lloyd and Nia, they've got some of their allies like Pixel, Misako, Dareth, the Elemental Masters. They're just fighting against Garbanon, Harumi, and all those other characters. Like in Ninjago City, it's apocalyptic. That's such a cool idea, and the show never did anything like that before, and it never did again, because, well, there are, of course, episodes where the ninja gets split up, it's just normal storytelling, have characters get split up, but to have it be done to this extreme is something that I really appreciate. I can't imagine how the season would have gone anywhere. It couldn't really have worked any other way. And because the season is split up into 2 stories as well, it also just has this very interesting pacing to it, I find. We never spend too long in one place, but it's not like every episode is half and half. It's 11 minutes first realm, 11 minutes Ninjago City. Each plot gets as much time as it needs to, but it never feels like it's just overextended. And given that the ninja are split up, it also helps us, get a bit more character out of them, because one of my problems with Season 8 is that, while I do still think the ninja were characterized fairly well there, if you weren't Lloyd or Cole, and I guess Zane, because he had that one episode, you didn't really do anything. Nia, Jay, and Kai were just kind of there. And while Zane did have one focus episode, for the most part he was just there, which, to be fair, that's still his role here, is the one ninja in Season 9. I can't really say he had any good moments, but here, well, a lot of the ninjas still don't get a ton to do. They still get nice moments to help them stick in your mind. To help remind you that, yes, these guys are still important. They're here for a reason. So, let's talk about those characters. Lloyd, of course, is the main character because, the show is basically revolved around him ever since he was revealed to be the Green Ninja. That's not necessarily a bad thing because, and it's not even entirely true anyway, it only really became a thing when you get to Season 8 where Lloyd is just really the main character who gets everything. And in Season 8, I did think Lloyd was good, but I think his arc in Season 9 is way better. Him losing his powers, I don't think is something that's happened before. But what I appreciate is that the show doesn't spend a ton of time on it after the first episode or 2. It's less about, oh no, what's Lloyd going to do without his powers? It's, how is Lloyd going to lead this impossible situation? Also, I just like the detail that since he lost his powers, his eyes aren't green anymore, they're black. That's a really nice touch. But you see how he and the Resistance are initially living in this small bunker hiding away from Garbanon and his forces. And you've got him really distraught, thinking, we have no friends, how are we going to fight Garbanon? Nia, Pixel, Misako, Dareth, they all try to motivate him, but he's just thinking, what am I supposed to do now? Which makes sense. And as far as he knows, the other 4 ninja are dead. Remember, at the end of Season 8, they were on the Destiny's Bounty that got crushed to pieces by the Oni Titan, so as far as everyone knows, they're dead. Garbanon thinks so too, everyone does. So when he finds out they can still be alive, He's thinking, okay, now we got something to work for. But still, what am I supposed to do? Until the Elemental Masters show up to save the day, which, such a cool touch. As a fan of those early seasons especially, getting a see callbacks like that where the Elemental Masters show up is always a good thing. Well, one, it helps it feel like the show didn't forget its continuity. But two, it shows that this is a huge world. It's not like something just happens and it's never important again. Everything that happens in Ninjago usually comes back as far as I can remember. I mean, even the Season 2 filler episodes are still really important. The ninja get, the Destiny's Bounty back. Lloyd grows older. The golden weapons get shot into space, which comes back later. Everything had some kind of importance to it. So getting to see Elemental Masters back? Cool. Tangent aside, the scene where Lloyd, returns, basically reveals to the world that he's still alive as he speaks on TV. Just one of the best Lloyd scenes ever. When Lloyd initially got recast in Season 8, Jillian Michaels was replaced with Sam Vincent, I was not happy with that. Because I was thinking, well, this isn't what Lloyd sounds like, it's not the same character. And I still kind of have the view of he sounds like a completely different character. Like, if you've ever seen the 2012 Ninja Turtles cartoon where Leo's voice changes in Season 3 and he just sounds like a completely different character, he even starts to act like a different character, but I think, the voice change is always going to be a bit weird to me, especially going straight from Season 7. I don't mind it as much because it feels like this character is actually getting older. And judging by how he's written here, I don't think that old voice would have worked, as nostalgic as I am for it. Back to the scene where he reveals to Garnon that he's still alive as he speaks to everyone on TV. You hear the classic Green Ninja theme, and he says, "Father, fighting me may make you feel powerful, but you're about to see what real power is." That's one of the show's many scenes that just makes me want to cheer, Like, all the people in Ninjago City, literally pump fists or something. You see some guy strike his heart thinking, oh yeah, the Green Ninja's back, baby. And even after Lloyd regains his confidence and all that, he still has to deal with a lot of stuff. Really, the only thing about Lloyd this season that I don't like is the scene where he has to throw away his Green Ninja outfit in a fire so he can't get caught. And he says, "Are you sure I need to do this? This is who I am." And Nia says, "It was never that outfit that made you who you are. It's what's inside of you." And I'm thinking, yeah, this would be a nice moment if it weren't for the fact that this scene was done way better 4 seasons ago. The whole, "But Moro's the Green Ninja now, Dad." It was never the color of the gi that made you who you are. It was the color of your heart. Yeah, that was just a way better version of this scene. Lloyd doesn't need to learn this lesson again. I mean, though, to be fair, this does have the same thing as a lot of these shows like this do, where when you go on, same thing with Ben 10. When the show goes on for so long, and the show is kind of switched gears, switched tones, directions, whatever, you kind of have to repeat stuff like that so that new audiences, if there are any, still get that same kind of emotional effect. And you know what? It's been 4 seasons. Fine, give him that same moment. Whatever. Garmadon this season is awesome. Garmadon is the best written character in Ninjago. Obviously, there are all sorts of videos talking about how complex he is or whatever, and I agree with all those videos. Garmadon's great. But I think one of the things that makes him so interesting is that his character goes from such wildly different tones, and it always feels consistent. He is probably the one character in all of Ninjago who consistently appears, who is always great. Sure, you could say what about Pythor, yes, but Garmadon does appear more than Pythor, so, I guess he's, there are a couple characters, but Garmadon is he's always great. In the first 2 seasons, the pilot episodes present Garmadon as Sensei Wu's evil brother. He was once good, but he was consumed and corrupted by darkness and cast down into the underworld. And in the pilots, all we see of Garmadon is as an evil villain, and that worked just fine. It worked very well, in fact. But in Seasons 1, though, we hear, hey, Garmadon, and when Wu, before when they were kids, they used to be best friends. Garmadon wasn't always evil. He used to just be a good person until he got bitten by the Great Devourer. And we see that despite the fact he's evil, he's got the black color scheme with the red eyes and the helmet, he's still not an awful person. He really does love his son. He doesn't want to have to fight him. In Season 2, yes, he's obsessed with killing the ninja, but he doesn't want to kill Lloyd. He wants to destroy them so that Lloyd can never be trained to become the Green Ninja. Like, one of his Serpentine says, "Why don't we just destroy Lloyd too?" And he yells at him, "No one is touching my son!" And because we know that Garmadon used to be a really good guy and was just corrupted, when he gets turned back to just be pure good in Season 3, it works. It doesn't feel out of character, and he's really, Sensei Garmadon is just a great character. But in Season 4, you still have to deal with the fact that he still made mistakes in his life, and he finally has to face them, where he sacrifices himself to save Ninjago. And then in Season 8, he gets brought back to life as a pure evil villain. And one would think this wouldn't work, but I think this works amazingly. Because, as I said, Garmadon is always hyped up as being this pure evil villain, the Dark Lord, who is nearly unstoppable. And here, we finally get to see what that is. But it doesn't feel like a complete portrayal of his character, because it is explicitly stated that only the Oni side of him was brought back to life. Even though he still apparently has dragon blood in him, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Point is, though, Garmadon's back, and he's evil. And he really makes his presence known. I mean, he's sitting on top of Borg Tower, which you know means he's a threat. He's got his big throne, he murders Mr. E, which they totally wouldn't have gotten away with if it weren't for the fact that he's a robot, but even though he is a robot, that scene always has this just sort of tension to it that never goes away. Like when the gears pop out of his chest and his head falls on the floor, yeesh. Or you've got the way his voice works. At the end of Season 8, his voice sounded a bit odd. I guess the point was to portray that he just came back from the dead, so he just sounds a bit slower paced, or like some kind of zombie that's regaining his voice. But here he's gone back to being that big maniacal villain, but with that serious edge to him that makes him terrifying. And there's never a scene where you see that speck of good in him. No, the guy's just evil. But he's not just completely one-dimensional evil. There's that scene where you see that he's genuinely afraid of the Oni. He's not fearless. And he even sort of adopts Harumi as his daughter in this sort of twisted way of the only person he could ever love was someone who's also evil, and basically worships him, so there you go. But then when Harumi dies, he totally freaks out and goes back to being, "I'm gonna kill everyone now." It's really good writing. You know, good showing of Garmadon. Speaking of Harumi, I do not like Harumi. One of my most popular videos, at least probably the most commented on, was why I think Harumi is Ninjago's worst villain. I liked putting that video together, and I still 100% agree with everything I said. That video was very controversial, as I thought it would be. But I did say there that I do think in Hunted, Harumi was a good character. Because a lot of the things I didn't like about Harumi couldn't possibly apply here. Like, one of my biggest issues was this stupid twist that she was the quiet one, but that's only really something that applies to the episode where it was a twist, or the episodes following it, but now that that's long established, it's not really a problem anymore. We also got the fact that you had scenes, right, what? You're expecting me to believe that Harumi, without the Mask of Hatred, mind you, can fight Lloyd hand to hand? I don't care if he was mentally unstable. There's no way she should have been able to fight him. But also, I've just wondered, how could Harumi be such a great leader and do all these skills? But here, she's less of a leader and more of like a second in command. Garmadon's the guy who calls all the shots here. And we get to see Harumi get beaten up, which is always fun. She gets pushed around by the ninja, or I guess the resistance. Garmadon force chokes her. And then she becomes Garmadon's daughter. And, you know, she gets tied up by Lloyd and insulted by Dareth. And then she eventually dies. What I really appreciate about her death scene is that, you know, she saves the family when she sees some kid whose parents are saying, "Take him to the elevator, we'll find another way, we'll see you when we get down." They don't do, "Oh, Harumi was actually a good person the whole time, look how she saved these people, she regrets helping Garmadon." No. She saves these people, yes, because she feels bad for them, but she saves them because this is the exact same situation she was in when she was a kid. She still worships Garmadon. She doesn't die thinking, "Man, I really shouldn't have brought that guy back from the dead." No, she doesn't. She just dies a villain. She dies being crushed by a building like she deserves. Take that, Harumi. If only she didn't come back to life. Mistake. Mistake's inclusion in this season was always something that really fascinated me, because thinking about what Mistake had actually done up to this point. She sold Sensei Wu Traveler's Tea in Season 1. Garmadon was going to buy Traveler's Tea from her later in Season 1. And then, in Season 2, she gives the Tomorrow's Tea to Sensei Wu and Nia, which, ages the ninja back up to their adult selves. So she was established as this kind of weird tea lady, but, in the world of Ninjago, what's so weird about that, let's be honest? She also, her voice was different in both seasons, I think. And then I don't think she showed up again until Season 8, actually. Or no, she has that cameo in Season 4 when the Anaconda Generals are being sentenced to death. To banishment to the Cursed Realm, should I say. She was there. She says, "Mercy, never heard of it." And she still looked really old even then. I have a feeling that was probably just a fun cameo for the animators or writers or whoever, but then in Season 8, she shows up once again with a distinct voice actor, not one of the already established actors just doing some extra work. She tells Lloyd and Jay the story of the Oni and Dragon. She gives the ninja the Traveler's Tea, which saves their lives at the end, and she just seems to be very suspicious. And then in Season 9, we find out that she is in fact an Oni. She basically also takes Sensei Wu's role this season, where she's the wise person who guides Lloyd. But she doesn't feel like just a copy of Sensei Wu, which I really appreciate. She offers a different perspective. We were told that Oni are just pure evil beings. But we see that, yes, she was an Oni. But when she followed the first Ninjago Master to Ninjago to stop him, she ended up really loving the world of Ninjago, and so she decided to betray the Oni, and has helped the first Ninjago Master ever since. And I just think it's cool. Cool bit of lore. It's a nice way to... and much like I said about the Elemental Masters coming back, it's nice when you get to see something from way earlier in the show come back, or someone in this case. But also, this doesn't feel out of nowhere for Mistake to suddenly be an Oni and be super important, because we didn't really know anything about her. And combined with the fact that she was just regularly selling people, dimension-hopping tea and time-manipulating tea, her being an Oni really isn't that surprising. It makes sense. You get the scene at the end where she turns into her Oni form, and then she fights Garmadon, and then she has her very well done death scene, where of course we don't actually get to see her die, but Garmadon says, "That was your last mistake, Mistake." And then she does not appear again, so she's definitely dead. I mean, the characters say that she's gone, so but great inclusion of a random side character made super important. That's all I gotta say. Iron Baron is such a good villain. I know this guy gets a lot of flack. People always talk about how boring he was or whatever. But I think Iron Baron is great, you guys. He's definitely not one of the best Ninjago villains, because that's a really high bar. I mean, this guy's got nothing on Garmadon, Pythor, the Overlord, Chen, Moro, etc. But if you read Dragon Ball, you would think that, King Piccolo isn't nearly as good a villain as Frieza or Majin Buu or something, or Cell, but this doesn't mean he's a bad villain. He just offers something kind of different. I mean, in that case, King Piccolo was like a prototype for what those other villains would be, but I think Iron Baron is interesting as he is, because he's not some big, super-powered guy. He's not this ancient evil like the Overlord, or even like a snake man like Pythor, who also happens to have some supernatural powers. The Iron Baron is a human. I mean, the Dragon Hunters all look like humans. But he is just so evil. He manipulated this entire society into making him their supreme leader. As he has like a cyborg arm and leg, because he says that he's given his own leg and arm to save his fellow people from Oni. He's fought armies full of them. He's even gotten the Dragon Blade from Firstborn. He's our hero, our leader. And everyone loves him because he always promises them all this great stuff. And then we really just get to see how evil this guy is. Because at first, I can admit that he is a bit boring. Sure, there's the reference that his throne is made from the heads of the Ultra Dragon, which only hardcore fans get. Nice reference. Really makes you hate the guy. And he's voiced by Brian Drummond, that's always a good thing, but he is, for the first couple episodes, not too interesting. But things get really interesting when you meet Faith, who we'll talk about later. And she sees how Iron Baron wasn't enslaving dragons, he was enslaving us! I mean, as she says, he says that to all the dragon hunters that he fought armies of Oni, yet they're on Oni lands and they haven't seen a single one, because they're all gone. And he says that his greatest hunters gave their lives to get the Dragon Blade. How do we know it wasn't him who took their lives? And when she says this, he looks really nervous, thinking, because he totally did that. He's basically an evil dictator who he convinces the people that he will save them and only to make their lives horrible. Because as we see in some flashbacks in Season 10, if the Dragon Hunters worked with the dragons, their lives would be way better. But no, they chose to listen to this guy. Then you get to the ending where he travels with Sensei Wu, who asks him, if you already control this realm, why do you need the dragon armor? Why do you need so much power? He says, well, because no one can ever have enough power. And some people can say, oh, he's a boring cliche villain or whatever, but you're telling me Ninjago isn't full of those kinds of villains who just want power for power's sake? Look at Master Chen. Look at the Overlord. Look at Pythor. Sure, those guys have plenty of personality, but I think when all the villains so many villains have that kind of charismatic persona, having one that's just a bit more stock, if you will, I think that works. It does make him stand out. And also, I still think he is threatening. Remember, when Faith says to all the Dragon Hunters, this guy probably killed some of us and took power with force, and they all start to question this, he pulls out a sword and says, not another word. Yeah. Oh, and he has one of the most satisfying death scenes in this entire show. Not like there are that many death scenes in Ninjago anyway, but just, he finally makes it to the Firstborn's nest. He says, I wear the dragon armor! Obey me, beast! He takes off his signature top hat, he puts on the armor and the shield and the sword, and all the dragons just stare at him, and then Firstborn roars in his face, his armor flies off, he picks up the sword, and then he gets blasted with fire and he dies. A pathetic end for a terrible villain. Terrible as in he was really evil. Great. Faith's character. Faith is a really interesting character. I always like the trope of the henchman or goon or something who works for the main villain who ends up joining the heroes. It's not a trope you see too often, but whenever it happens, I like it. I just like the idea of Faith too. She was Baron's best hunter, but nobody really knew anything about her, and she didn't really like serving him, but hey, he was their leader, he promised to protect them all from the Oni and the dragons. But when she meets the son of the first Spinjitzu master, from Ninjago, whatever, that joke was funny. She wants to join Sensei Wu and the ninja on their quest to find the dragon armor. We get to see these nice moments, like when she finds out that Iron Baron was lying to everyone about the Oni, and she gets super upset. She's the one who tells all the dragon hunters, Baron probably killed some of us and stole that dragon blade. He's not trying to help anyone, he just wants more slaves. She says, once he has the armor, he will have no need for you except to kiss his hat. And he just looks completely shocked. Great moment. I also really appreciate the fact that when she says, Iron Baron never wanted anyone to know his greatest hunter was a woman, it never gets expanded on. It's just this one moment that gets kind of brought up again later when Jet Jack sees Faith and she says, Heavy Metal, you're like me. Because if it had, I just appreciate it's this simple moment that goes to show that Iron Baron's a huge jerk. But also, if it doesn't try to give you some big lecture about how sexist he is or whatever, it's just this one moment that shows that he's a really bad guy, but it doesn't go any further than that because it doesn't need to. It would be completely plot irrelevant. But if this were made 5 years later, they'd totally go on to big tangent about it. But they don't, and I really respect that. I also like that she doesn't go back to Ninjago at the end with the other ninja. She says, I hated this place, but you showed me that with courage, things can change. I would rather stay and fight for change in my home than run. And she comes back in Season 10. Nice little guest appearance. So, Faith, good character. Time to talk about Sensei Wu, or his evolution. I like Kid Wu for these first 4 episodes. It's just funny to see Sensei Wu as a kid, when he still kind of has that, like, you know, the wit and attitude Sensei Wu used to have in early seasons, but he's a kid. I just love his dynamic with Cole. You know how Cole raised him as a baby when they found him as a baby in Season 8, and now he basically has to be an older brother or father figure to him here. It's just fun, and it gives Cole some nice moments, like he has to once again go in disguise as Rocky Danger Buff. And it turns out that's an actual name in the first realm, which is just really funny. And you know, he has disguises with Cole. He helps him build the metal dragon. It's just some nice moments, you know, it's fun. There's not really more to it than that, but, you know, he is funny. I do like the moment where he says to Cole, never put off until tomorrow what can be done today. And Cole says, what? Those are my words. And Wu says, no, they're my words first. You just borrowed them. But after that, we get to see him become Teen Wu. I really like this whole part of the season, because it puts Sensei Wu in this very interesting spot we've never seen him in before. We always see him, before we saw him as a bratty kid, who was super confident in himself, but usually we see him as this old man, this wise old man who's a great fighter who has, and when he's confident, you know he has what it takes to back it up. But here, he's constantly doubting himself. He's starting to regain memories of his past with his father and brother, but he still doesn't remember everything. He's not the best fighter. He's not the best speaker. He doesn't really know what to do. And like I said before, where you get nice little moments with each of the ninja, except Zane, we get some nice little moments with Kai, where everyone's trying to practice how to chain up dragons. Wu is the only one who he can't do it. So Kai goes over to him in one of Kai's last good moments, and he teaches him about confidence. And I like that it's Kai who teaches him this, because Kai has always been a kind of, you know, overconfident character. His hot-headed nature is part of his personality. He always has been pretty cocky. So to see him be this mature and teach someone about confidence, and it's not cockiness, it is confidence, and he's teaching it from someone who taught him confidence in the first place, it's good stuff. You know, it really shows these characters have evolved. They aren't as stagnant as they eventually become in the Wild Brain era. I just like getting to see Kai do stuff, you know? I know some people say that Kai's declined again in Season 8, but I put that more as on, you know, just most of the ninja didn't really get to do anything in Season 8. So it wasn't necessarily that Kai's character was being butchered, he just didn't really get to do anything. But here, he actually does, and it's nice. Oh, also on the topic of the ninja, I don't really have a section for Jay, so all I will say is that Jay just losing his mind is really funny. You know, I guess here's another spot to talk about Jay. I completely forgot about this. So you know, as Kai taught Wu confidence. You know, Cole's just sort of taught him, you know, just how to interact with people, I guess. But then Jay teaches him what it is to have a sense of humor. The ninja, Wu, Faith, they're all tied up by the dragon hunters. And the ninjas start trading banter with each other that feels straight out of the first couple seasons. You know, that's what happens when you have the original writers. They really know these characters. Wow, it's so surprising. It's not surprising. I guess that's just a side note. I so appreciate the original writers, the Hagman brothers, came back for Season 9. I know they did do half of Season 8, which is the reason why Season 8 is as mixed as it is, in my opinion. But they did almost all of Season 9. And so their writing, their just knowledge of these characters in this world, it really helps Season 9, because it really does feel like one of the older seasons, just evolved. So we've got them trading this classic kind of banter the ninja would used to do. Like the whole, but Zane, why does Zane always have to be right? Because I'm the intelligent one. Yeah, and I'm the looks of the team. What? I thought I was the looks. No, you're the annoying one. And Wu's asking, how can you all laugh at a time like this? And Jay says, well, you know, when you're in a really bad spot, it helps to just try to see what's good, what's positive with a good joke. And then Wu actually pulls in a joke of his own. It's nice. Then we get to one of the best scenes in this season. One of the best Sensei Wu scenes ever. As I like to call it, the return of Sensei Wu. All the ninja are tied up. Iron Baron is going to go off to find the dragon armor by himself. Everyone is doomed, basically. And then Wu regains his memories, breaks out of his chains, grabs a hat, grabs a staff, and says, "You are going to let my ninja go, or else," or something like that. And he just beats up all these dragon hunters. Great moment. Remember, Sensei Wu isn't just some rickety old man who barely does anything anymore. He taught the ninja for a reason. He's a really good fighter. I mean, anyone remember that scene in, I think it was season 5 when he's just casually racing across rooftops? No? That was cool. And here he's a bit younger, so it makes sense that he'd have more action in him. And he eventually gets to become the Dragon Master after he learns from he tells Iron Baron, my ninja taught me a lot of things. Confidence, a sense of humor. But I learned something from you, the power of lies. You didn't really think the dragon armor was what made Firstborn obey my father, did you? It was his heart. He sensed goodness in him. What does she sense in you? And then Iron Baron dies, and his Wu is, still a bit afraid of the dragons. They give him the armor. They all bow to him. And he gets to fly on the back of Firstborn as everyone sees Firstborn fly out and is terrified. And they see it's not Iron Baron on the back of the dragon. It's Sensei Wu, with the original dragon theme song from Season 1 playing. As a connoisseur of Ninjago's music, you just gotta love touches like that. And then Jack asks, "He's riding without chains? But how is that possible?" And Faith says, "The Dragon Master doesn't need them." And the ninja all bow to Sensei Wu as they welcome their master, or should we say, Dragon Master. And then Wu bows to them, saying, "No, my friends, it is I who should bow to you. It was your lessons that guided me," which... Another one of Ninjago's Lord of the Rings references, but when it works, it works. Just the idea of having this great hero who's achieved something so big, but he ends up bowing to the other guys. The other guys don't bow to him, because as important as he is, without the other ninja helping him, he wouldn't have been able to do this. They taught him the same lessons that They teach him the same lessons that he taught them. Everything comes full circle. This is something Jay actually says. In the beginning of the season, he says it as a joke. Now we're teaching him the same lessons he taught us. But no, that ends up going from a throwaway joke line to becoming a real part of the story that just is really satisfying. And the ninja, for the first time in ages, just get to fly on the backs of real dragons. Not energy dragons, just regular old dragons. And we have this awesome remix of the dragon theme song that plays as the ninja fly back into the sunset, back to their home. Speaking of that home, the season finale of Hunted is one of the best in the entire show. Ninjago is known for its great season finales, and this is certainly one of the best. I just first want to talk about the ninja trying to take down the Oni Titan. For one, it offers Kai's last great moment, I think, where he is the one to come up with the plan to take down the Oni Titan. This is something that Kai would have come up with back in older seasons. Because I only realized this just now, even though this has been this is something like my 5th, 6th time watching this season. I only put it together now that the ninja trying to take down the Oni Titan is an homage to the ninja taking down the Great Devourer back in Season 1. Remember, they had to run around buildings getting it to the point where the Great Devourer ended up biting its own tail as it was chasing them, causing it to be stuck in place? We kind of get a callback to that, and that's just really cool. And everyone comes together to take down the Oni Titan, and it's just good. The final battle with Lloyd, Wu, and Garmadon, though, is next level stuff. Lloyd and Sensei Wu appear on top of Borg Tower with this ominous music playing as Garmadon says, "My family, my enemies. You may have Father's sword, but now my power will surpass even his." And they have this epic battle where Garmadon pulls out those purple destruction daggers, which I really wish were included in a real Lego set, as he tells Wu, "You think Father's sword can hurt me?" And we get one of the best Sensei Wu lines. "No, but it can hold you!" As Firstborn blasts Garmadon with fire, and even he is surprised. He's genuinely thinking, am I going to survive this? And he just casually does. He just melts off Firstborn's fire and knocks her off a building somehow. He knocks away Sensei Wu with just Lloyd versus Garmadon now. And this is a way better fight than their fight in Season 8. That was a good fight, don't get me wrong, but that was really more of a stomp, and at first Lloyd wasn't even trying that hard. But here, no. Yes, it is mostly a stomp, but Lloyd is putting up more of a fight, and I'm just more emotionally invested in it this time, so it works really well. Well, you've got Garmadon wielding the Dragon Blade as he says, "Oh, if only Father could see me now." If most of this season had Garmadon portrayed as a pretty stoic evil villain, here he's just relishing in how terrible he is. His evil smiles and the way he yells at Lloyd about power and how Ninjago is built on those who deserve power and all that stuff, as he beats him down. As we get another, much like in Season 8, he picks up Lloyd, and Lloyd begs for him, Garmadon to let him go, but he doesn't. Except this time, Lloyd is actually able to fight back, using the art of the Silent Fist from Season 3 of all things. Another great callback. Granted, it's not named, but that's clearly what it was intended to be with the whole, fight without fighting. This time it's, I cannot fight you, but I can resist you. Because earlier, Garmadon said the fight is what fuels him, or whatever. So, by not fighting, he grows weaker until Lloyd is able to regain his powers and defeats Garmadon. Great, just great moment. And now that I'm done talking about Season 9 itself, I just want to reflect on Ninjago now that it's 15 years old. Man, where is the time gone? You know, there's a lot of stuff that's impacted me over the years. It's had an emotional effect on me, all that sort of thing. You know, Archie, Sonic, Transformers Animated, Dragon Ball, but nothing has left the same kind of impact on me that Ninjago has. This was one of the first TV shows I just really got obsessed with, you know? Everyone had that one cartoon they used to really like and probably still do even now. This is what Ninjago was for me. It was probably the first story-based TV show, comic, movie, series, whatever that I kept up with. I was there. I remember watching Season 4 when it first premiered. I remember watching Season 5 when it first premiered. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All that stuff. I was there for every minute of it. I followed Ninjago rumors, leaks, episode reviews, set reviews, the video essays, the whole shebang. I saw the Lego Ninjago movie in theaters on opening weekend, and I hated it, and I still do. But it just goes to show how much I love this show, you know? I read all the Ninjago comics for crying out loud. And I think it's just because, you know, even if Ninjago wasn't one of the first things I just really got into, I still think I would always just appreciate it for what it is, because a lot of people make fun of, you know, people who don't watch too many cartoons. They think that a show like Transformers Animated or something, or Ben 10, just exists to sell toys, just exists to sell action figures. So they would probably think that a show where all the characters literally look like Lego minifigures, that it just exists to sell Lego sets. And you know what? Maybe it was created to do that, but remember, Ninjago wasn't created as in, here are cool Lego sets, now make them into a TV show. It was a hand-in-hand process. And while not every season of Ninjago is good, I haven't even watched Dragons Rising, I just really don't want to. The show never felt like just a straight-up commercial. The Lego Ninjago movie did, but that's a whole different thing. The show always felt like it was not just trying to sell you sets, which it did, but it was also trying to sell you a story. There are all these videos talking about Ninjago lore and saying how insane Ninjago lore is and how cool it is, and you know what? They're right. Ninjago lore is awesome. I think that's one of the reasons that just keeps the show so fresh. It's always able to pull from its history and create something new. And while not every season is good, they always offer something distinct, usually. Every season has a very distinct identity to it, its own title, which is what makes them stand out, I think. The ninja always are getting new costumes, new weapons, new abilities. There's always some new villain to fight. There's always some new part of the world to explore. Ninjago really feels like this vast world that just sucks you in. And it's no wonder that I love it as much as I do. I'm really happy that Ninjago is still here to this day. Do I think Dragons Rising is necessary? No. You know what? I probably would have been happier if they just kept making sets but no TV show. But thinking about it some more, I've heard people like Dragons Rising. Maybe it's not for me, but that's okay. I'll always have the original Ninjago series. It's always going to be there. I'll always have the sets. All the great memories I've had with Ninjago, those can never go away. So what if there's not a new project to look forward to, aside from maybe that live-action movie that's going to be written by the Hageman brothers, so that gives me some confidence. Maybe Ninjago isn't going to be the same as it was for me back in 2015, 2016, 2017 even, but that's okay, because Ninjago is still great. I was always there for it, and it was always there for me in a way, and I just gonna have to endlessly respect it for how much it impacted me. I love Ninjago. I always have and I always will. So happy 15th anniversary, Ninjago, and hopefully you'll have another. Hopefully you'll be here for the 20th, 25th anniversary. Thank you, Ninjago. Thank you. That's all for now, and remember to stay way past cool.